right, and her name is Dawn. On the 23rd of March 2010 she was born. She's got half a heart, yes you heard that right. You're looking at Supergirl fighting with all her might. So stick around and you will hear the amazing story about my girl right here.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Leahxo Adventures. If you're new here, my name is Jade-Marie and I'm the mother to almost 9-year-old Dawn-louise. Now if you are new here, then you may not know that my daughter was born with a condition called hypo-plastic left heart syndrome. This means that she was born missing the left side of her heart. Throughout February it is Heart Month, so we are doing a series of videos to try and explain better what her condition entails and how it has affected both of our lives. In today's video I'm going to be talking about my birth and my labour with her. So the first thing I need to explain is that because of the seriousness of Dawn-louise's condition, I was supposed to be induced at a specialist hospital, which is about an hour away from where we lived. During an induction, as far as I'm aware, because I didn't end up having it, I would go up to the hospital, they would have beds and doctors ready, and we would be at the hospital where her surgeries would be performed. They would give me medication that would make me go into labour, and they would be able to control the birth a hell of a lot more than if it happened naturally. Unfortunately, that is not what happened. About 11 o'clock at night, I started having back pains and didn't really think much of it because I had coccydynia and I was in pain from that a lot anyway. So I decided to run myself a bath to try and ease the pain. And instead it just got worse and worse and worse. Got to about 11:30 and I'm starting to think, this isn't right. Now, because I was supposed to be induced, I had no idea what it was going to be like if I went into labour. Nobody gave me any warnings on that. But I had started to sort of clock on to the fact that I'm probably about to have my baby a week early. I ended up calling my midwife and she actually told me that she couldn't help me. So I did what any person would do when they're worried, and I called my mum. And she came round to my granddad's, which is where I was living, and we got into a taxi, and at this point things start to get fuzzy because I cannot express to you how much pain I was in. Labour is extremely painful and I will never ever be doing that again. So we went in the taxi and I'm basically rolling around on the back seat of this like really big cab because I was in just so much pain, like so much pain, and I was worried and it was stressful and it just wasn't wasn't a fun time. So we pull up to the hospital and they put me into a wheelchair and they wheel me into the room. Now, I must admit, my recollection of this is very fuzzy because of the amount of drugs I was put on. So I'm going to give you basically everything that I do remember, but obviously a lot of things were affected by the medication because the first thing they did was put me on gas and air. So I remember them putting the belt monitor with the ECG onto my belly to measure her heart rate. And they gave me gas and air and I was sort of falling asleep until the contractions hit again, and then I was waking up and falling back asleep, and there was this just really awful cycle of that. So the only time I was really conscious was when I was in pain, and then for the rest of it I was fully out of it. And the next thing I know is I'm laying on a table. There are about 4 different heads around me, really bright lights, a massive mask heading towards my face, and they're going, just breathe, just breathe. Now, I did not know this at the time, but they were putting me asleep for an emergency cesarean. So it's safe to say that nothing went to plan with my daughter's birth, absolutely nothing. Now, I have no idea why I went into an emergency cesarean, and I have no idea what time it was or anything like that because I was completely out of it and no one bothered to tell me afterwards, so you know as little as I do about that. So I wake up and it's now 12 o'clock noon the next day on the 23rd of March 2010. I wake up and I look around this room and it's a big room. There's a toilet in front of me at the end of the bed. There's a big window. It's really bright, so I knew it was morning, which was really confusing. And I looked down and my entire bump was just gone. And I was so confused that it honestly felt like I dreamt the entire pregnancy and I was in hospital the whole time. I had no idea what was going on. I was completely alone. Nobody around to ask what was going on. Bearing in mind that I had just had a huge operation myself without even knowing it. I was on some pretty high medication because I don't even know what they used to put me to sleep. But they didn't just numb me, they completely knocked me out. Eventually, my mum walks in and they're like, oh, you're awake. So she brings me in some tea and they tell the nurse, and they didn't really tell me anything. They didn't tell me like what happened, why I'd been asleep, why I'd had an emergency cesarean. really nothing. There was no information. So the nurse did give me one thing. She gave me a yellow piece of card and it had a photo of Dawn-louise in it and like a picture of a clock, and it like pointed to the time she was born and how much she weighed. Nobody ever measured her, so unfortunately I don't know how long she was at birth, which sucks, and it's something that I do regret, but we'll save that for a future video. I feel like I'm saying that a lot at the moment. But yeah, the photo that they gave me was this one here. I don't have it in the card anymore. I've got it in this frame. This is her scan pic, and this is the photo of my daughter. And this was the very first time that I saw her. The first time I saw my daughter was in a photograph. And it really sucks because nobody should meet their child for the first time in a photograph. It really does upset me now that that is how I came to meet her. But yeah, that is my little baby right there. So you can see that she's got a feeding tube in her nose, she's got a pulse oximeter, an ECG machine on, and I never saw her without all that on. I had only ever seen her with it all, which is pretty heartbreaking if I'm honest. So I don't actually remember this because I was still really drugged up. But apparently they had put a catheter in during my emergency cesarean, taken that out, and I just stood up and they pulled it out. That's literally what they told me, and I don't know if that is what happened because I don't remember it. After that, they put me in a wheelchair and they took me to the NICU where Dawn-louise was, and I have a photo of me touching her hand. But for me, that never happened because I don't remember being there. I don't remember seeing her. I don't remember being in the wheelchair. I literally remember nothing of it because the medications were so heavy. You know, I'd just been put to sleep for a surgery. Oh yeah, she was born at 2:18 in the morning, by the way. So I probably got to hospital around 11:30, midnight, something like that. So I was only in the hospital for like 2 hours before she was born. But that is literally all I know, is that she was born at 2:18 in the morning. She weighed 7 pounds 15 ounces, and that is all I know from her birth. I have no idea what actually happened when she was brought into the world. I have no idea who brought her into the world. Something that I already do struggle with still is that I wasn't like the 16th person to meet her. There were so many people that met her before I did. And like I said, I don't actually have any memory of the first time I met her. For me, the first time I met her was when she was 36 hours old. Something that is so important and such a huge moment in someone's life, and it not feel like it's your memory, because I don't remember it. And to me, that isn't the first time that I met my daughter, because I don't remember meeting her. And you should remember meeting your firstborn child. It's not fair that that was sort of stolen from me because of her heart condition. So the next thing that I know happened was they put her in an ambulance and blue lighted her to the hospital that she was supposed to be born in to get her settled. And they told me once I was pretty okay and able to move around and stuff that I could go see her. So they were going to try and get me to the other hospital as quick as possible. Unfortunately, that isn't what happened, and I don't know what happened. I guess it's because the medicine took so long to wear off, because she was born at 2:18 in the morning, and by noon I still had no idea what was going on. I had no memory of what was going on. So I think that that's probably what held it up, but I didn't end up leaving the hospital that I did give birth to her in till 11 p.m. at night, and they promised me that when I got up there they would let me see her that night, how late it would be, and unfortunately that wasn't true. They put me in an ambulance and we got to this hospital that was opposite the hospital that she was in, because that's where their maternity ward was. It wasn't actually in the same building. And this was probably the hardest part, was I was put on a ward with healthy mothers. And from the minute I got there, all I could hear were babies crying and their mums shushing them and rocking them, and my baby I don't even remember meeting, and I have no idea where she actually is, and all I have is one photograph of her, and I remember putting it on the little bedside that was next to where I was going to sleep that night, because that was all I had of her. I didn't have like a blanket that she'd been with, I didn't have, you know, a toy or anything. Earth had gone so far away from the plan that I didn't actually have anything with me that I had planned to take with us. So I didn't have anything to really give me comfort, and it was an extremely hard position to be on a ward where there are babies in mother's arms walking up and down the corridors, and I have yet to hold mine. As far as I remembered, I hadn't even met my daughter yet, and it was incredibly difficult to be in that position. All I wanted was to meet her, and it was too late at night for them to allow me to do that, because she was on the PICU, which stands for Pediatric Intensive Care Unit. It really does still get to me, the fact that I wasn't with her. Like, it's really hard that complete strangers met my baby before I did, and not just one or two doctors, like so many people who had no idea. So the next morning I got up as early as I could, and at this point I still couldn't really walk because of having the cesarean. I still had bandages and staples in, so I had to be really careful, which meant that I wasn't allowed to leave the maternity ward by myself, so I had to wait for my mum to come get me, and she put me in a wheelchair, and she had to literally wheel me all the way over to the other hospital, which is only like 10-15 minutes, but I had no clothes with me. My hospital bag didn't end up making it to me. So I was in like a giant top and mismatching pajama bottoms, and it was just, I really did not look good in the first photos of me and my baby. I do not look good. Next day, I think it was early afternoon, maybe like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they said that I could go and see her. So they put me in a wheelchair and they wheeled me over to the other hospital, and by this point my daughter was 36 hours old. And like I said, as far as I was aware, I had never met her before, and I definitely hadn't held her yet. So I'm wheeled up into the NICU, and they helped me sit onto a chair, and they said that I couldn't hold her against my skin. I couldn't have skin to skin contact because of all the wires all the wires and the medications that were keeping her alive. We had to make sure that they weren't, accidentally pulled out. She had about 6 monitoring wires, and they couldn't be twisted or, messed up, because then they'd have to be taken off and reapplied. So I could only hold her in the crook of my arm. I was not allowed to hold her up to my chest or up to my face. I wasn't allowed to pull the curtain round. I wasn't allowed a single moment for it to just be the two of us. And that is something that I really struggle with still, is the fact that I didn't get to really hold her. Not properly. I didn't get to hold her like she was mine. Like she was my baby. I felt like I was visiting someone else's baby, because I wasn't really present at her birth. I was completely knocked out at sleep. And that is something that has really eaten me up over the years, is that we missed out on so many of the things that we should have had. Like, we should have been able to have skin to skin contact. She should have, I don't know if they did, because nobody explained to me what really happened during her birth or during the cesarean. But I think that she should have been held up to me after her birth, so that she at least knew I was her mum, because there were so many people caring for her that she probably had no idea who her mum was. I don't think that she recognised like my voice or anything in the hospital, and I feel like we really missed out on a really special connection there. And I've worked really hard over the years to make sure that we are close, and that she knows that she can lean on me and that I'm here for her always. But there are some things that you can't get back once they've gone, and there are a lot of moments with her that we have lost forever and that won't ever be able to be fulfilled. And it really hurts. It really hurts, because she spent the first 6 months of her life in hospital, and I never got to do skin-to-skin contact with her the entire time. And I never got to be alone with her. It was never just the two of us. And that was incredibly hard. Incredibly, incredibly hard. And I really do take as much time as I can now that we're home to just be with her, because there's nothing I wanted more than to just be. But I was thankfully still able to hold her. She was stable enough for me to hold her, but the nurses had got her dressed in a vest. So I didn't really see her body before she went into surgery. She had surgery at 6 days old, so only 5 days of her life was she unscarred. And although I don't feel like I missed an opportunity, you know, not seeing her with her scars, I do think that it's strange that I find myself now, if I see like a healthy baby, I'm like, your chest looks weird. And it's because I've only ever known a baby with scars, and they are all over her chest. So it is like a big difference for me. And I think that I should have had more time to enjoy her as a baby and not a heart patient, not a post-surgical patient. But unfortunately, that's just the way it went for us. That is the gist of my birth and labour story. It was one of the most traumatic days of my life, if I'm honest. I was in so much pain and fear the entire time. But it is how she was brought here, and without going through all that, she wouldn't be here today. So I'm still incredibly thankful for the fact that she had made it through birth, because that was the most risky time for her, other than her surgeries. You know, the hardest part is bringing a child into this world whose health is reliant on the mother at that point. In the next video, I will be speaking about the surgeries that she had, so I'm going to leave today's video here. It is quite a sad video, so I apologise for that, but I think it's important to share our stories so that other people can understand truly what going through all this means. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe so that you can catch the rest of this series, and I do hope we'll see you soon. Bye.